Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show we'll have a talk about a Linux project, such as a distribution, desktop environment, or application. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion, or the saloon bar, I suppose, instead of the table. But I guess it's kind of a table. Is that a table, Colin? Is that considered a table?
Paper table, right?
I don't know.
What is?
So, like,
sorry. What?
if you go to an actual saloon, not a Linux saloon, but an actual saloon,
Oh yeah,
and you go
it's a bar.
it's a bar. But is it also a table or is it a bar?
No, it's a bench, isn't it?
I don't know.
It's not a table. A table is something that's away from the bar, and you're sitting on chairs. But
Okay.
at a bar, you'd be sitting on a stool, so it'd be a bench. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, well, I'm going to consider you the authority on this since you are the elder here. Or maybe Dale is. I don't know. Dale, do you have any comment on that? Is that
I think it's a bar,
it's a bar?
not a table.
It's a bar. Well, it's a bar. If you're going to get a drink, you tell your mates, "I'm going to the bar to get a drink." So
Belly up.
it's a bar.
Belly up to
Right.
the bar, boys.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. But I was just checking because I don't know. I once tended bar at a little local dive bar. It was like 10 years ago. It was actually a lot of fun. I'd bring in things for show and tell. So I bring like computer parts in and it's like, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? And people thought it was funny. And these are like, farmers and so forth. So they didn't really care all that much. I mean, they did, but like
They didn't show.
they didn't
Didn't show much interest, did they?
well, they thought the game was fun. Like the of what is it? They thought that was kind of fun. But anyway, I suppose is everyone doing great tonight? Everyone have a good weekend so far? Is Saturday going well, or Sunday for you, Colin, since you live in the future?
Yeah, well, this is my once in a month appearance, so
okay.
I'm away
Oh,
up north,
well,
working away. So
Okay,
we love having you, Colin, whenever you can be here.
I agree.
yeah,
We're glad to have you. Colin, make
a lot of
sure
fun.
you pipe up and talk as much as possible because you got to cram a month of Colin time into one weekend. So if you can
Oh,
sort
no,
of arrange that.
No, I don't want to.
I don't know if we could do all
take
that.
over the show.
We could actually make it so you host it. I can make you the host, and then you can actually run through everything.
Oh no, you don't want to do that. Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
You want people to come back, right?
Yeah, I think actually it'd probably bump numbers upward if we did that. Anyway, be sure to do the straw poll if you have not done so. It is about how long do you think hardware should be supported? So, what your opinion on there, and just check that out and throw in your 2 cents. Also, I'm really excited. We have passed the 1,000 subscriber mark. I'm excited about that. So it only
Nice.
took, I think as of last week we did. So it only took 251 or 150 of these meets. So that's great. I'm excited. So anyway, on the docket for today.
It took me about 3 years.
Yeah.
Does that mean we got another 250 episodes to get to 2,000?
I think actually, in this case, it's probably going to slow down. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean-
wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, I'm not that compelling or an exciting host, so I don't even know why people subscribe to begin with.
You're
But thank
right,
you.
mate.
Thank you for subscribing, all of you that have done so. I appreciate it, and so does everybody else, because it gives me a reason to do this. But anyway.
Absolutely.
Well, all right. I was going to say, with me on this panel, I've got Michael, Dale of the Low Tech Linux fame, got Ben, Sravan, Colin, Jinda, and Cruz, who sneaks in and out. I think he probably went to the car to go get his keys. I don't know what he went to go do, but here he is, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. I don't know if you can tell. This says SUSE, but we can pretend it says open right there. And anyway, so I guess let's move on to the first thing. So what is something cool that you've been doing in tech? Sravan told me that he has been messing around with Syncthing, and he's been having a heck of a time. I don't actually know what kind of time he's having. I'm just assuming here So Sravan, tell us about what you got going on.
What the heck?
Yeah, if people don't know what syncing is, it's for syncing software to sync files between computers.
Mhm.
And you can sync between as many computers as long as all of them are in the same network. So to ensure that computers across different physical locations, either online or even in the world, are in the same location, I use Tailscale to make sure that all of them are in the same VPN, so they can all communicate. So I actually have a Oracle server, which they somehow provide for free, like 200 GB server for free. But the catch is when you have a server, I use it for hosting my apps. Like I do some NBA data analysis and I make some apps for that. So I have a Docker image running with the server hosting the app. So, but the issue is getting files across. So I used to run an rsync script to sync the files to that, but Syncthing is a better solution. But till now, I've used Syncthing on systems where there's a GUI. So if you have used Syncthing before, you need a web browser. So Syncthing opens its configuration in a web browser. You can't do the configuration via command line or via a config file. It has a very large XML file, which I don't recommend editing. So you need a GUI, and a server doesn't have a GUI. So I couldn't access the Syncthing configuration so that I can sync files between the two computers. And this has been gone for months. I've been using rsync. But I've discovered something called SSH port forwarding. So you can forward the port on the server to your local system. So it's simple. It's like SSH-L, a port on your local system, and then localhost 127.0.0.1, and the port which you want on the remote server, which you want forwarded. And then you need to just type the name of the remote server, and you can access that port, in which Syncthing's case is like port 8384. You can access that to any custom port on your browser, and then you can edit the configuration like locally, despite the server not having a GUI. So yeah, I've figured out how to do this after so many days of struggling with SSH port forwarding. I couldn't figure it out, what the correct orders of the ports and the URL is. But now I figured out it has been very convenient for me to now sync the files to my server too. Can't hear you, Nate.
That's because I muted myself because I was typing. So I not to poo-poo on anything, but I've been using Syncthing for probably about 9 years now, and you don't need to be on the same network to make that work. You can actually have it use relays out there. So I have many things on my Syncthing network, and no matter where I go with or without Tailscale, it will work and it'll relay back and forth. So and also,
how do you set up this? How do you set up the relays?
So it is when you, let's say you have two computers, it'll give you a key, an identification. You just take that identification from one computer onto the other, and then so you just put it in there, and then put the name. I just put whatever the host name is of that computer, and then I hit OK, and it will go out and it will find the other computer, other device, and then it will say, hey, this wants to sync, and I hit OK. And what I did also to make my life a little easier, and I don't know if other distributions have this, but I know in OpenSUSE they have something called, I use QSyncthing tray. So it actually puts a little tray in my little in the corner, and so I can actually just click on that at any point in time, and it'll pop up the GUI, and I can see that everything's up to date and whatnot. But yeah, so I sync, like I have a default folder that I sync between like my phone. So if I have something I want to transfer back and forth, like just easily, or like whatever. I also use it between my phone for pictures instead of Google Drive, so that the pictures just go directly to my computer, and then my server. So I have a bunch of nodes set up. So my server's on that node, I have my laptop, this computer here, a few others. And then what's nice about that is everything just stays synchronized. So like if any one computer blows up, which they won't do that, they'll have, because, computers don't blow up, do they? If any one computer just stops working, I can just hop to another computer and I can continue to work because everything is there. And it's been working beautifully. There's been a few like early on, like maybe 7, maybe 6 years ago even, where I had some issues with it. But actually at this point, it's really simple to set up. You don't actually have to do anything with the server. If you want to set up a relay server, that only helps the network some more. But it's not actually explicitly required. But Syncthing is really awesome. I highly recommend it. It's a serverless way of distributing your data between multiple devices and sites and whatnot. And so I think it's great. I love Syncthing. I don't know. I prefer it. I mean, the downside is you have to have the entire repository of data. You can't if you sync a folder, you can't not sync some of the subfolders because it's all or nothing on a folder.
No, yeah, you can set up rules to prevent subfolders from syncing. You have to manually add it to the rules. Yeah, I do that.
You can edit. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you can do ignore patterns. I suppose you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do that because I have some folders which I want to sync. Basically, they're Jupyter notebooks, but there's a subfolder with all the data too. I don't want the data to be synced, so I can just add that to ignore patterns.
Yeah. I think I probably could play this some more. But anyway, I just my documents folder, music, pictures, projects, and I have a system folder that just has things in it. I probably could disperse that elsewhere. But anyway, where I keep that's like where I put my emulator stuff, games and whatnot. I'll sit there. But anyway, I think Syncthing is
now I figured out how to use it on a system without any monitor on it, so it's even more convenient. Without any monitor, without any GUI.
Oh yeah, headless, yeah.
Because the only drawback is that you can't control it via CLI, so you need a GUI. But what would you do if it is on a virtual server? So this port forwarding is a very convenient way to overcome that limitation.
So I haven't tried using it headless, but I guess that would be like some added complexity, I suppose. But I guess you can.
It's very easy. It's just one command. It's like SSHL, and then the port on your local system, and 127.0.0.0.1 dash port on the remote system, and then the remote system address. If you SSH into that, it's like a normal SSH with extra tunnel.
Could you just log into if you open up the port, could you just log into it remote, like from a distant,
yeah.
And then just use the web?
Yeah, that's what port forwarding is.
Okay.
Basically, it basically forwards a port on that remote system to a custom port in your system.
Oh, okay, I got you. I'm picking up your link.
It's like you're accessing the port, and there's no need for firewall rules also because you have already SSH'd into that. You have complete access of all ports. So no need to worry about firewall issues if there are.
I got you. So Michael says he had terrible luck with Syncthing yesterday. What happened that it was just terrible?
It decided to start syncing on an empty directory and delete my files. Luckily, I had turned versioning on already.
Huh. I've never had that happen.
With
that would upset me.
With Syncthing, if you're switching to a different distro, can you use Syncthing to restore those files?
Yep.
So I sync files between Windows, Linux, across, and even my phone, like everything. It just works.
Yep.
Different distros, different operating systems. Yeah.
Yeah, check it out. Syncthing.net. It's pretty. And there's also there's an article on cubelinate.com of how I started using it way back when. If that has any interest.
That's happened. That same thing has happened with Apple products, right? If you set it wrong on a iPhone or the old devices Apple brought out earlier with, just for playing music and that. What's the iTunes? If you had the wrong selection on iTunes, it would sync nothing, right? And then you'd end up with nothing. So that's why I have a hard time using these syncing products, because you just don't know, unless it's obvious that you could mess something up, you don't want to sync nothing, and that can happen.
No, they should not be used as backups. Again, for anyone listening, don't use Syncthing as a backup tool. Use it as a syncing tool. So backups are different. Backup should not be done using Syncthing, because again, as Michael said, you're syncing, and if you delete a file by mistake, rest of the computers will sync that.
Right. So you're syncing files and you're updating. So if you're making changes to files and stuff, it'll sync those files with the updates. Is that what you mainly use it for?
Yeah. So if I want to share files between computers, I can just drop it in a folder instead of whatever tool. Instead of uploading it online or using whatever tool. It's like I have a folder syncing. And right now I have two main laptops because I poured hot water onto my laptop. It doesn't work anymore, so I had to buy a new one. So in the new laptop, like I run Python in both. I do some data analysis and other code for both work and hobby. What I do is I just sync the Jupyter notebooks or Python files, and so that if I don't want to do it via Git. I have a Git on the repository also, but like Git is inconvenient, like doing it every day just to sync changes between like two computers. You use Syncthing, everything is synced, even Git is synced. So the Git folder is synced. So that way it's like you don't need to even worry about it. So you can, get pushed from both computers, so without any issues.
I can see how that would be a good advantage, a huge advantage, to be honest. Does it work with Google Drive or not?
You can sync a Google Drive folder. Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay.
If you want to, yeah. You can do whatever. It's like syncing, but not backup. Don't use it for backup, people.
It's
fair enough.
When I set up a new computer, or put a new drive in a computer, I want to sync. I basically just add it to my Syncthing network, and then all my files come to it. So basically, I set it up, then I walk away, do other things, and then it'll all be there eventually. But it's several gigs of information, so it can take a while. Yeah, no, it works. I mean, except for Michael and his problems, it's been working great for me for a long time.
But I totally understand Michael's difficulties. I think it has happened to me once or twice. But again, I never use it for backup, so most of those files are available anyways. So I didn't lose anything.
Right.
Oh, I had already had things set up to make it not lose stuff, but needless to say, I immediately uninstalled it because I can't have it doing that.
Right. Yep. So Cody, it's not that cool of a stream. You have to go in the chat. It's not we're not that cool here. Or I'm not that cool. I don't have such things set up. I have exactly 2 plugins, I think. Or maybe 1. I don't know. Anyway. Well, cool. So I guess we'll see how, check back again in a while, Sravan, and tell us how Syncthing continues to work for you.
No, Syncthing has been working fine. I've been using it for 3 to 4 years, but
okay.
The first time I'm using it on a non-GUI machine.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Which explores, which improves, which expands the list of computers I can use. So if you have a VPS or if you're doing something, instead of whatever buckets people use, some data buckets or something, I don't understand what those are. You can just use Syncthing, just sync everything there. If you want to transfer data to your servers.
Yeah. I think what I do is I do Syncthing to keep stuff synchronized between, and then I take backups from there. Well, Yeah, Sean is very correct. Backups, the ultimate digital safety net. I think it was Adam Grubbs who said if you don't have it in 3 places, you have it in none, or something like that. Or if you don't have it in 2 places, you have it in none. I don't know what it was. I think 3 is the same as 0, or 3 is the same as 1. I don't know. Anyway, well, cool. So Ben said he wanted to share his. He had some Wi-Fi troubles. So now, Ben, if you're still there, or if you're munching down on your lasagna because you have to tell us what you eat all the time, makes us a little bit jealous.
I'm here.
Yeah. You said
So what happened was, my Intel Wi-Fi was acting up in Linux, and so instead of taking the safe route and leaving it alone and doing a proper fix that my gracious teammate and buddy Darren told me to do, and not buying a Wi-Fi card that completely screwed over. Pardon me, taking the laptop apart like I shouldn't have did and listening to him and my dad. We took the dumb route and did what we shouldn't have done, and long story short, we screwed up the computer.
Sweet.
So basically, right now it's sitting out in the garage, half apart, until we can get a USB solution, which luckily I found for $20, which is $20 again down the drain on top of the one he had to get for $20 that was internal. So either way, we're gonna figure out when we can do that and just sort of, put the machine back together with internal Wi-Fi, but that's here and there. So
what
anyway,
what is it that you did that messed it up? Did you break the connector?
Well, the antennas that were supposed to go on top of the card were already mung to heck as it was from doing countless upgrades to this machine. And what should have been an easy boom, 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 take it apart, boom, 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 put it back together, turned out to be almost a day and a half's worth of work for nothing. So, yeah. And essentially now we just have to leave it half apart for a little while until we can get a dongle to put in there instead.
So you can buy replacement antennas. It's actually, you can go, they're very, very inexpensive. It's literally just a wire of a specific length.
Yeah, we decided not to do that. We're just going to get a USB solution.
They're really quite cheap. I did that on my Atari VCS computer.
Good.
And because I broke the antenna connectors.
Well, it's not the antennas themselves. It's the little connectors on the antennas that are causing the issue.
Right. So they don't pop on or they're damaged. Bent
Yeah, they're damaged on the bottom side. So
yeah, that's what I did too. That's why I should put new antennas in, and it's a pretty easy process.
Just he doesn't want to take it apart any further than we already did.
Yeah, well, it's understandable.
Plus the fact I already sold him partially on a USB dongle that pretty much does the same thing. So
hey, whatever works for you. I'm just making just a suggestion of what you could do.
No, and I thank you for that, but we already looked up that and it said it was non-trivial in this case. So.
Because generally they just route the antennas up the display panel, usually on the side, or sometimes behind it.
Yeah, we just said, we're just gonna go ahead and, do a USB solution. Heck with it.
And call it a day. I get it.
Game.
Makes sense.
But yeah, that's just what we decided to do. Anyway, so yeah, and while I was in the midst of this insanity, the good news that came out of this is that luckily I backed up everything beforehand to my USB SSD, so it wasn't a huge loss. And just one minor mention, Nate. I have a Beta 1 ISO of Storm G, my Gen 2 edition, that's finally come to fruition. And I did test it, But there's one caveat. I forgot to set the Calamares configs properly until today when everything went kablooey. So I am now building the ISO again in VirtualBox. So yeah, basically things just hit the fan all day.
It happens.
So rough day for Benny boy.
It's part of the life of being a computer nerd.
Yes, it is, my friend. But luckily, I have spare laptops all over the house, so it's not a huge loss. But you know, hopefully soon we'll all will be good. So,
Well,
Sean, no, it's a USB SSD that has all my backups, my friend. It is not a SATA connector in this case. Anyway.
Gotcha. So there was a chat here from Anna Rita. She said, "What Star Trek themed backups?" And it was a comment that I made to Sean. It says, "I like the Star Trek themed backups," which is, he says, currently he's using Borg with Vorta for scheduled backups and related maintenance. So Borg, I think Vorta is the front end for Borg, or Borg is the front end for Vorta. I can't remember now. I use Back in Time, but I think I was looking at Borg with a Vorta. I think Vorta. Anyway, so those are a couple of solutions that you can have for backups. And yeah, I think the whole snapshot thing is a great way to do backups. I'm a big fan of that. Anyway, so yes, Sean should come on here and tell us about his backup solutions. I think that'd be great for everybody. And then Ron Singh says, "Hello everyone from the gray wasteland of Saskatchewan." There we go, Saskatchewan. I almost said it wrong.
Saskatchewan.
Yeah, good times. Anyway.
Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan? We could do that too.
Anna Rita has a question, actually. She has a blank screen with a white cursor when you boot up, and the drive is not recognized in Linux at all. So she's running via I think she said, a USB drive enclosure with an SSD Samsung 860 Evo. So I'm not quite sure whether that is a hard drive problem or
could be a hard drive problem. Typically, every time I've had something like that happen, it's always been a drive failure. Or
is that right?
Yeah, or it could be that something happened to Grub. And there's a way to do Grub repair, but I haven't had to do that probably in over 10 years now. So I couldn't tell you exactly how to do that. I know that I used Antix for doing the Grub repair because it has all these kinds of cool
Antix,
tools.
Yeah. It could be a Grub problem. It could be I don't know if it's an update problem or what, or a graphics issue. Sometimes that's a graphics issue too, you know.
Could be, but if if it's not booting, can't find the device. I don't know. I'd have to see what it is. Yeah. So Anna, you can send me an email. You can email me at cubiclenate.com or something at Linux Saloon. You can email Nate at linuxsaloon.com if you want. Whatever you want. And I can maybe try and help you out with that, since I don't see any of the other social media type things. Not that I blame you. It's hard to stay on top of the Discord and Telegram and.
Oh yeah, she tried boot repair, but it did not recognize the drive.
Yeah, if it didn't recognize the drive, it could be a drive failure. I would go into your BIOS and check to see if the computer's recognizing it. You may just have to reseat it. Also, could try that. But if you
take it out and put it back in. Yeah, absolutely. That might
blow
work
on it
too.
like a Nintendo cartridge. I'm kidding. Don't do that.
And somebody did say, look at the smart data on the drive when it's installed internally.
Well, if it's not recognized, you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, Anna, I wish you the best in your endeavors to recover your wayward machine.
She got backups, I'm sure. I'm sure Anna takes backups.
I'm sure she does. Why wouldn't she? Anna's an extremely responsible sysadmin of her systems. At least that's what I've been told. That's what everybody says. All right, so we're going to go into that straw poll. So how long should hardware be supported?
Oh, straw poll, I haven't done it yet.
You haven't done it yet? Go ahead and do that. I'm going to read the replies first. So Eris put this
you do
together
that
for
and
us. So the first reply is, if the hardware costs as much as a washing machine, it ought to last as long. The smiley face with the tongue sticking out after that. Then hardware generally has very slim margins. I think the follow-up to this question would be, how much are you willing to pay for longer support? It also really depends on the device. A commodity router or managed switch, I could understand 10 years. A phone feels about right at 5 to 7 years. Thanks, Apple. Remember when the Apple had like 2 and 3 year phone? Like that's all it'd be good for? I think the expense would get exponentially higher per device, still in service thereafter. I think that's fair. And actually, the more I thought about this question, the harder it was for me to answer.
yeah, true that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this will be an easy answer. The more expensive it is, the longer we want it to last.
Yes, and I want to get to that as a discussion before we get to the news. So hold that, Dale. Keep that thought right at the tip of your nose, because I want to get to that. And actually, I'm going to segue right into you after we're done with this.
I better write it down or I'll forget what I said.
What did you say?
I better write it down or I'll forget what I said.
Yeah, what did you say? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about expense and you know.
And potatoes.
Yeah, expensive potatoes.
Expensive potatoes. So I think 7 years is good for computers these days. I have computers from 2016 that are just starting to feel slower than even using Linux, though they're still usable. Another reply. It's not about how long it's supported. It's about if the device is so closed that it's bricked or unusable once the support has ended. I think those are all very good answers. And I'm going to check real quick to see, not that I get a whole lot of replies here on Mastodon, but okay, I got a couple of whatever the version of retweet is, or whatever, repost. A lot of favorited, but no actual interaction there. And also nothing on the Twix, but c'est la vie. That's the way it goes. All right, so I guess we'll look at the results of the straw poll. Go ahead and refresh. So the number one answer, which is ultimately what I put on there, 10 years. With almost half the vote at 48%. And then next 7, okay, now it's 50%. Just changed. So thank you. So 10 years, half the votes. 7 years at 18% in second place. In third place, 5 years with 9%. In fourth place, we had 20 years at also 9%. I guess these are all tied for third. 20 years, and then longer than 20 years also, and then 4 years in the, I guess we call it sixth place, because you don't, the way that works. Anyway, 4.5%. No one said 1, 2, 3, or 15 years. So interesting. Now I want to get back to that idea of, so here's my problem. When I first read it, I was going to say, 10 years right off the bat. And then I thought about it and go, well, I mean, if you buy a little, device, whatever, where does that line come at? What hardware should be supported for and for how long? 20 years ago, things were very rapidly changing. We had wireless B, then wireless G, and N all came about really in a very short period of time. With I think G kind of hanging out there for quite a while, and then N a little bit longer, and then and so forth. So I think that you would naturally just swap those out because you want those greater speeds. So then it comes back to support. I think maybe those devices shouldn't get 10 years. I think who said Dale? No, somebody Don in the chat said it depends on what what hardware it is, how long it should be supported, and I totally agree. So you get these cheap IoT type devices. How long do you expect those things to last? Usually they kick them out there, the company goes under, they can't support it anymore, right? How many devices have you purchased like that? So that I think it largely depends there. And also, I think that someone else brought a good point, if depending on how much you spend should dictate the amount of support. But I have a real big problem with the whole e-waste thing. I also don't like spending a lot of money. So there's those two factors. So, maybe there needs to be a bit of a cultural change there on the kind of devices that you should be spending your money on. I don't know. Dale, what were you going to say about the about that?
Well, just mostly the more expensive it is, the longer it should last.
Mm-hmm.
But on the side flip of that, other side of that coin is I'm old. I'm a grumpy old man, and I remember when things that no longer last a long time now used to last a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they just designed them cheaper so they could make more money and sell the thing more often. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So there is that is an issue too. You have these knockoffs that come. Let's say, well, I'll just keep it vague, but something is, let's say, made domestically, and then you have competitors that come in that don't have the same sort of standards and have lower labor costs or whatever, and they will out, they'll compete very hard. It won't necessarily be a better product. A lot of times it's a lesser quality product, but people tend to go for the cheaper product because, it'll do. So when I worked for a major appliance manufacturer, the target time for like a refrigerator, even like the average length of time refrigerators in service is about 17 years, but the target time they would do was 15 years because the cost of increasing that to 17 or 20 years it would cause the price of our product to be higher than the foreign competitors, and so there was no the market would basically not support the additional amount of quality in that, and they would lose market share. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
yeah, so they couldn't compete with the foreign products because of labor costs were cheaper, material costs were cheaper. The whole supply chain was less expensive essentially, and fewer restrictions and whatnot. So there's that as well. But yeah, so that's a that is a problem, I think, and I don't know what the solution for that would necessarily be. I don't know. I'm not I'm not an economist.
Well, if you make them repairable, then I don't have much of a problem with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because like some of the stuff that you buy, you can't even fix it if you wanted to.
It's true.
They're just junk.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I guess then it made me think framework. I bought a framework machine because I can repair it, right?
Right.
So there's an implied that they'll support the products for an extended period of time. It's uncertain as to how long at this point, but how long should like their first 11th gen Intel mainboard be supported? Because I would actually break it down. How long should those components be supported? Do you think? I think that almost seems like that's got to be taken into consideration as well too. So
I think at least 5 years. At least 5 years for the components. I think from the actual hardware system, maybe more than 10 years should be a minimum because that's what they're selling people on. Like I have non-modular laptops, which I bought 15 years ago, which are still working.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't say, okay, I'm selling you a repairable, upgradable laptop, and we support this framework for only 10 years. Not framework, like prototype or whatever platform.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it should be 20 years, not 20 years maybe. But if they keep on using the same platform, I think that's fine. Otherwise, if they say, okay, we came up with this new design, and it won't be compatible with the older one, then yeah.
I got you.
I think this question's not really clear cut because you have different OSs, right? You've got Windows, you've got Mac, you've got Linux, you've got BSD and whatever all the other ones are. Does it depend on how long they want to support it for?
Well,
is that a silly question? Or
no, it's not. So, I mean, that's actually a problem right now. So, Windows 11 will not run on 7th generation and older CPUs, not because it can't, but because they don't want it to. and any excuse that Microsoft
Yes.
makes on that is basically a bunch of garbage anyway. So I'm not gonna. I don't care. You can make it work, but it does take a little work. Yeah, actually, Michael, I want to get to that. That's a good.
Or does it
I-
mean you should make?
Well, I mean, my desktop in my office is not Windows 11 certified, but it's running Windows 11 because I made it run
Right.
Windows 11.
Right,
And-
but still, I mean, that does not mean it should be done.
Well, Microsoft doesn't want you to do it, and they have their reasons for it. I don't agree with those reasons, but it's
No.
they are a business that can run their business however they want to. So the other question then too be like I think how long should hardware by the manufacturer should they support it? And I don't even know that's actually that's why I said on the surface this is a real easy question to answer, but the more you dig into it, there's many layers to this whole problem
Yeah,
too.
for sure.
It's so how long should Debian be building 32-bit versions of Linux? Dale, I want
that's a
your
good
opinion on
question.
that one specifically, Dale. So you have
Sorry, what was
so
the
you have-
question?
Debian and OpenSUSE still build 32-bit distributions.
Yes.
When should they stop doing that?
Oh, man.
Because
One of those behind me is a 32-bit. I don't know how to answer that.
well, I don't either.
Well,
So-
one of the things I've noticed is like in the CNC world, because a lot of the CNC machines I've used over the years, they all use antique technology because they want something they know is reliable. And the
Right.
only way to know that a motherboard is good and reliable is to buy one that's 10 years old that you know that never failed.
Right.
So, I mean, then now you're looking at a different spectrum of something that's old. I mean, a laptop sitting here on my desk is an antique and old, but if it's stuck in a CNC machine that does nothing except for running a couple of lines of code, then you would expect it to run for a lot longer.
Right. And that's I think that's the trick right there, because a hardware upgrade for that CNC to have a faster CPU or whatever, more whistles and bells, is that going to make the CNC run any better? Is that going to make for a better CNC?
No, it's not going to do a damn thing to it because it doesn't need any power to run.
Right. So then how long should something like that be supported?
Right. I wish I could have an answer to these questions.
Yeah, I think there isn't. I think this is one of those reasons why I really like Linux and open source, or just open source in general, is the idea that, if a company like that CNC manufacturer or whatever, if they open source enough of their machine, whatever the machine may be, then it has a chance at a life that extends far beyond, supported by people, by the community, kind of putting ownership maybe back on the individuals, as opposed to putting it necessarily on the company. But I do think the company should be responsible, at least for a certain period of time. I don't know what that time is, but I do think that cheap electronics that we throw away after a couple of years, I don't like making additional laws or anything like that. But I don't think companies should be doing that. You know what I mean? I don't think we should somehow avoid wasteful electronic waste. It really bothers me, that sort of waste. I
But
guess
don't
it's
buy
really,
a Chromebook.
well, no, you can buy a Chromebook, but then what you do is you have to take it apart. You gotta take out depending on the Chromebook, you can
Yeah.
actually just install Linux right on there. So now it's funny because the Chromebooks have terrible keyboards. Their arrangements are kind of garbage.
Yeah.
But you can then use it. You could still use it. In fact, I have an old Chromebook. My son actually put new firmware on there that made it so I could put OpenSUSE Tumbleweed on there. And well, actually, he did all the work, and then I just took it from him.
I mean, that's why you got the Steam Deck.
Well, he took my Steam Deck. I mean, he gives it back, but he did take it. It was not a fair trade.
But in all seriousness, it's the weird thing is right now, a lot of times it really doesn't matter if you're buying something cheap or something more expensive. in the laptop world at least, because a lot of times they're going to have the same type of things that are going to be issues, like soldered RAM to the board. The cheaper, what I notice, the cheaper laptops are a total pain to take apart if you have to try to do something, even replacing the hard drive. So if you buy something like, if you buy something business class, you may be able to more easily replace the hard drive and a few other things. But a lot of times now, even, RAM is still soldered to the board. There's still there's still very little you can actually upgrade in a laptop. Even some desktops, the way they're put together, they make it very, very difficult. Even a more expensive one, they make it very, very difficult to do some of those upgrades. And one other thing I would say about the 32-bit stuff, the trick right now, I think, is that you gotta look at how many developers still have a 32-bit machine they can even, actually try to test on. That's the other thing you're going to run into, because we kind of switched. It's been over 20 years now that we really kind of started switching to 64-bit.
It's true. There are some people out there, some developers or some enthusiasts out there that do maintain the 32-bit hardware and do test it. I'm one of those Haniaks that have 32-bit hardware that I use, although I tend to use it more for like headless purposes. I do have a laptop, so it works great for those things.
That's awesome. I'm just saying, like, I know some distros ran into that problem where their developers simply did not have the hardware anymore.
Right, it's true. So I guess then that's where support should be based on how much interest there is in the community to keep it going, and by interest I mean people who are willing to do the work to keep it going.
If we look at the the scope of this, like if you look at worldwide, there's probably still some unfortunate countries that can't afford some laptops that may still, or computers as well, that may still be using 32-bit. So maybe that's another problem that we have worldwide, and that may be why it's still supported as well.
I don't think
older machines.
Any 32-bit PCs have been being produced in the last 10 years. I might be wrong.
I think you're correct.
No, but that's probably the only computers that they have. Maybe they get the hand-me-down computers by charity or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking about it, but just things that come to mind. But it could be. And also, I don't know if there's still teller machines, the FPOS machines or whatever they are. They were still running XP, weren't they? Some of them.
The
I don't know if they
televisions?
still do. Some of the banks, don't they run some really old and Windows support that by, because they don't want to change it or something? Maybe that's changed now. I don't know, but it's the last thing I heard anyway.
Last I heard, the vast majority of finance still runs on COBOL.
What's that?
It's an old language.
A programming language from the 60s, I think.
Oh, is that right?
Okay. I gotta jump in here. My sweetie's daddy actually programmed Cobalt, and he worked for North Carolina State University, and he was in their computer division, and he programmed on Cobalt. And he is currently 83 or 4. He's running Linux that I didn't help him install, and he's programming COBOL.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he's not allowed to retire because there are not very many COBOL programmers left.
Yeah. You're not kidding.
It's one of those deals where if they could get like 20-year-olds interested in learning COBOL, they would be thrilled, those 20-year-olds would basically have a career. All they have to do is stick in COBOL, and they could do that for 30, 40 years, because that's exactly right, Nate. There are a lot of COBOL programmers like up there in age, just because of when it was done, and a lot of them are working in very there's an article, and I will try to find it so I can send it over, but there's an article where this guy's interviewing his mom, who worked at a bank, who did a lot of COBOL programming, and like the setup they have is crazy. They have to, I think they have to basically go into it's not SSH because it's a mainframe, but they have to go into some remote session to even program in COBOL. It's a very, very different world.
There's got to be a YouTube
That's
video
very
on it
interesting.
somewhere, like just to watch and see this process. There's got to be something. At least I hope. Seems like it's worth going down that rabbit hole. So then the question is, how long should COBOL be supported for? I mean, how long has it been now? What, 50 years, 60 years?
Well, I was gonna. I actually thought of an answer for your how long should 32-bit be supported, and I think the answer. I don't know the answer, but it goes along the lines of it depends on how hard it is to maintain, and I know they're not really maintaining it, but if it's just flip a couple switches and it builds, then they're just keep doing it forever, I guess.
So it looks like Mike Chilston says, I've done freelance COBOL for many years. I think he should come on Linux Saloon and tell us about his COBOL experience. I mean, if he wants to. He doesn't have to. So that's cool. And then Don Lackland says, well, how long as the application's running COBOL supposed to be supported? How long has the application been running COBOL supposed to be supported? I guess is what he's trying to say.
I would expect most of them are well beyond what they were supposed to be supported.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't even know that was a thing, but it appears that article was deleted. I'm sure there's a copy out there somewhere, but there is a quote from it that I see here. Question was, what was the worst thing that you've seen on a day? And then the answer was, my coworker forgot to add a dot at the end of a statement for a module in the most critical part of our system, which we call the cash register. It is the part that handles all the money. The result was the entire bank was down for 16 hours straight due to the module continuing executing statements when it actually should have stopped after that statement.
Wow.
It basically overloaded our system, a self-DOS of sorts.
Wow. So Mike Chilson said, you would all be asleep in 5 minutes. He says, well, it is kind of late, but I think we would be interested. In fact, maybe Mike should come on and do a presentation for the community free pour on COBOL and its significance to everybody. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think I'd be interested. Then Daniel Yount says, Yount says, I think it might be IBM 3270 terminal like Telnet. I miss 3270. That was a fun terminal to use. I used it managing databases, I don't know, 10, 15, and 20 years ago. So, yeah, those are good times right there. Anna Rita, COBOL is a programming language that basically keeps the world financially running. So it greases the financial wheels of the world.
So the question is, why do they keep it around? Is it more secure than anything else, or it's just because it deals with money? It's something they don't want to change because it's, it's something that's been proven to work and be reliable. Would that be the reason?
So there are other areas where I actually see COBOL used, but yeah, finance is the one that I always hear about it being a thing, and I think it's a if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing. And
yeah, okay,
I think the other piece of it, and somebody else, if Mike knows in the chat, I think the other piece of it is that these systems at this point are so big that they are terrified.
Hmm.
That would make sense. Yeah, 'cause I think I guess you have to start breaking the problem down. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's a tough one. But it's cool nonetheless. All right,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and move on to the news flight. That was quite a wandering there into the I don't know how we got there, but here we are. So we're going to go into the news
Interesting
flight.
anyway.
So I guess we'll start off with Ubuntu provides more insight into their decision not to use -03 optimize all packages. Now this one, I read through this article and I didn't quite understand it. So maybe as somebody here who's more knowledgeable can say, but I'll go ahead and read a little bit of it. And this is on Phronix. So it says, since last year, Canonical has been investigating using -03 compiler optimizations for their Ubuntu package builds in the name of delivering better performance for Ubuntu Linux. That much I understand. A few weeks back, though, they decided that they would not use the -03 optimizations for all packages. They have now provided more engineering insight into the reasoning and the results of their investigation into -03 compiler optimizations for more packages. Long story short, with distribution-wide 03 compiler optimization, they didn't have enough compiling performance benefits to justify the effort. Thus found that some performance regressions in the optimizations adversely impacting some load times as well as larger binary sizes in some cases. For example, they found a 12% performance hit in the GNU radio. TIFF decompression regressed by nearly 12% too. The size of all Debian packages increased by about 6% with the optimization default. And the size of the desktop ISO increased by just under 4%. So on the Ubuntu Discourse, they summed up their findings and concluded with, well, that seems odd here. Hang on. I feel like that I'm missing something. So it's a bunch of blank, I don't know what's going on there. Let me see if I can copy that over. That's weird. Oh yeah, look at that. So distro-wide 03 does not seem to provide better performance and regresses it in an interactive task. It affects load times by up to 11.9%, which is detrimental to container workloads that strive for fast application startup. Overall, the regression is mostly caused by the increase in the executable size. In addition, in some situations, -03 and link time optimization together can result in excessive function inlining, which then turns regression performance, presumably through register pressure or instruction cache thrashing. It's fair to say that all this is in line with conventional wisdom. 03 can help in some situations, but not a sensible default. But it is definitely better to verify this than just rely on folk knowledge. In addition, we still want to investigate more ways to improve the performance of Ubuntu, and each time we exercise our benchmark muscles, we will get better at it. So the article goes on a little bit more about some of that. But anyway, Ubuntu 25.04 is due for release in mid-April, so it does bring some other performance benefits, while more performance testing is ongoing. So
April is upon us, folks. Very
yes,
soon.
Mid-April, so a couple more weeks, and then we should probably do that for distribution exploration.
That'll be a fun one, yeah. And yes, I'll be doing the XFCE version as usual.
Oh, good.
Oh, Nate, speaking of April, in a few weeks it'll be my dad's birthday.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's better. It's good to have birthdays, you know? It means you're another year older. You haven't.
Yeah.
Once you stop having birthdays, then you have other problems. So I think it's interesting that other optimizations that they're exploring can have detrimental effects versus beneficial effects. But it's neat to see how Ubuntu is actually experimenting with that and doing the benchmarking. So, has anybody here done benchmarking, like compiling and benchmarking? Seems like something Michael or Sravan would do. Maybe Scrub Ghost. Scrub Ghost might do that.
I did a very long time ago. I don't remember much about it.
Benchmarking is just comparing different PCs, right?
Well,
or languages.
PCs or OS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Anything.
did something. Like I was trying to undervolt my PC. So I was like benchmarking at different voltage points to get first if you benchmark, you stress test your computer, so it will know if your undervolt is too liberal. Otherwise, your computer will crash. So I use benchmarking board for seeing how the performance is improved and also if the undervolt is stable. Also use it to compare with other computers online to see how my computer compares against theirs. Just
Yeah.
for fun.
That is fun. Seeing where you rank. But I don't really. I'm not one that's going to spend a lot of money on computer parts to get the most.
I never buy. It's like just okay. My computer is this good, and like you can put a number on it. Like I like numbers, so
Yeah, I understand. Numbers are fun. All right, so here's something maybe a little more, little less extreme nerdy to make sure that Anna Rita doesn't fall asleep on us. But Debian 13 or Trixie, the freeze process has begun, or begins. So Debian
Now
released
that I'm excited
announced-
for.
Yes, that Trixie transition and toolchain freeze began on schedule this month. So large or disruptive changes to Debian unstable for what will become Debian 13 is no longer permitted, but should be routed to Debian experimental. Following the toolchain and transition freeze beginning around April 15th, will be the next step for a soft freeze for Debian 13. No new packages and delayed migration will be enforced. 1 month later, on the 15th of May, the hard freeze for Debian 13 is expected. The full freeze is to be determined along with ultimately when Debian 13 will be released. So the release team sent out a note that the release critical bugs for Trixie is trending lower, and that is a good thing. Debian 13 still needs more work on the release notes, as well as for testing upgrades from Debian 12 to 13. So 13 should be released during the back half of 2025, if all goes well. So stay tuned in the coming months. I know that'll affect MX Linux. It'll affect what else? Anybody here will have other things that may affect? I don't know. Doesn't affect me, but actually does affect me because I just built some Debian 12 machines.
I actually have some news about that, Nate. I am planning to make my own Debian, so that'll affect me.
Cool.
I think Deepin's on Debian too, aren't they? Deepin, aren't they based on Debian?
I think they are, yeah.
I thought they were Ubuntu based. But I
Oh,
guess I'm wrong.
Colin,
No, they
remember that
changed.
Storm D
Oh, okay.
distro I did that one time? Like way back in 2021, I think it was. Took a look at it. Well, I'm bringing that back, dude.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, on with the program.
So I'm just glad to see that Debian's still chugging along. You know, there's all these newfangled things out there, but we still have Debian, and I think that's a good
They
thing.
release every 2 years, right? Seems to these days it just doesn't take long before the next main release of Debian's out. It just seems to.
That's because you get older, the Earth spins faster.
Oh boy,
At least
it's just incredible.
that's what I've been told. All right. So another bit of news: KDE developers began working on a new login manager.
Well, now this one interests me because the login manager, is this the one that's standard? Like if you install KDE, standard login manager, the SDDM, is that what we're talking about?
I believe
Yes.
so.
Is it the SD? Yes. I mean, that thing is, sorry to say, it's ugly. The standard one is just not very good at all. So I'm glad to hear that, because having such a nice interface that KDE Plasma has, their login manager is not the best, because most distros that run KDE, they put a nice spin on the login manager, but if you use it by default in Arch Linux, it doesn't look that good at all.
Oh, but that's
it
Arch.
looks completely outdated, right? To be honest,
I suppose I use, of course, the OpenSUSE version.
Right.
But and it looks fine to me. It doesn't look bad. Looks no worse than Windows login.
I have
manager.
auto login, so I don't even see it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And I know that KDE back in the day had their own, was it KDM, I think it was called.
Yep.
But it wasn't capable of doing modern day things, and they weren't able to fix it. So, and SDDM was an open source project, and if I remember right, I think it was a Qt project, but don't quote me on that. So they just kind of borrowed it extendedly, and then I think, maybe 2 years ago or so, I think the KDE project actually took over SDDM. So I don't know if they're writing a new one or if they're just going to fix SDDM finally.
Well, here's the article from Phronix. KDE developers began working on a new login manager. KDE developer David Edmondson has published a lengthy blog post outlining the long-standing challenges they've had with SDDM Display Manager, unimplemented features they want out of Login Manager, and acknowledge GNOME's GDM as a gold standard for display managers. While not yet an official project, they began work on a new KDE Login Manager for improving the situation. Edmondson has been involved in SDDM development and has in acknowledging its architectural issues, has begun working on a new Plasma Login. Plasma Login Manager Plasma Login Manager projects in conjunction with fellow KDE developer Oliver Beard. Among the features ultimately desired out of Plasma Login Manager include great out-of-box experience in multi-monitor and high DPI and HDR.
Sweet.
I like that.
Yeah.
So keyboard layout switching, virtual keyboards, which they already have. I don't know. Easy Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese input, or CJK input. Display and keyboard brightness control. Full power management. Screen readers for blind people, which then means volume control. Pairing trusted Bluetooth devices. Login to known Wi-Fi or remote LDAP. That would be handy. Remote VNC RDP support from startup. That would also be handy. I know that I do that OpenSUSE has some sort of a crazy patch to allow VNC to work on it. So, which causes other problems because the Wayland version doesn't work quite right. So they have to use the X. They use the X version of SDDM to make it work. Anyway.
Yeah. But they're trying. That was something else that Tumbleweed was trying to fix. When like in my case, when you do an automatic login, but you're automatically logging into Wayland, it has to start SDDM in an X session first. Mm-hmm. So you're loading up an X session just so you can load up a Wayland session, and that was driving me crazy.
The other thing too is like I have noticed recently, if I have a trusted Bluetooth device, that now works when you get to SDDM. So maybe it's another hack that OpenSUSE did because I use it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, because I've been avoiding using Bluetooth paired keyboards because you wouldn't be able to log in, but I tried it just recently. I'm like, oh, weird, it works.
I use a Bluetooth keyboard.
Yeah. So it's got to be a hack then, or like a workaround of some kind.
Yeah.
So while not yet an official KDE project, the developers have begun working on this new Plasma Login Manager code. The new effort began by stripping down the SDDM code as their backend and now taking anew with a fresh design. A new effort.
Fresh design, there you go.
That should make you happy, right? The new effort currently lives within the Plasma Login and Plasma Login Manager Git repositories, though eventually this code may be merged into a single repository. The code is working, and they even have a screenshot to show, but it's not yet ready for distro packaging or state beyond developers wanting to explore, which looks exactly like what it has looked like, according to the article. The picture in the article, anyway. For those wanting to learn more about the KDE Plasma Login Manager effort, you can do so via David Edmondson's blog. I'm going to copy this link here.
Very cool.
I'm happy about that because I know that SDDM is a pretty hacky mess, and I'm happy they're going to fix it.
Yeah, me too.
Being the KDE Plasma fanboy that I am.
So Scrub Ghost, you could pipe up anytime if you want, Scrub Ghost, but I see that you've put in the chat, says, I've had no problem with my Bluetooth headphones. I've been having trouble with my Wi-Fi card. It seems to have fixed itself in Tumbleweed. I know that Wi-Fi doesn't initiate when it's in the login screen, but it would be nice if it did, I think. So, all right. So next, do we have anything else you want to say about SDDM? That's all right. Oh, I see here, Ron Singh asks, anyone use KD Connect on Linux Mint for text on their laptop instead of punny cell phone screen? I'm not exactly sure what he's saying there, but I use KD Connect on MX Linux. Works pretty well. So yeah, and Anna Rita says, I love Bluetooth. This has no wires, Wi-Fi too, but I still prefer Ethernet. Probably safer and faster. But anyway, well, good deal. No, I'm glad they're going to be working on SDDM. Hopefully it'll make things a little bit better, because the RDP doesn't work quite right lately in Tumbleweed. You have to VNC into it from there, which is unfortunate, but here we are. All right, so another article. Google makes Android development private. Will continue open source release. I thought they already did this. Didn't they do this already? This is from Ars Technica. So Google makes development private and will continue to open source its releases. They're planning a major change to the way it develops new versions of Android operating system. Since the beginning, large swaths of software have been developed in public-facing channels, but will no longer be the case. This does not mean Android is shedding its open source roots, but the process won't be as transparent. Google has confirmed to Android Authority that all Android development work going forward will take place in Google's internal branch. This is a shift from the way Google has worked on Android in the past, which featured frequent updates to the public AOSP branch. Anyone can access AOSP, but the internal branches are only available to Google and the companies with a Google Mobile Service license, like Samsung, Motorola, and others. According to the company, it's making this change to simplify things, building on recent changes to trunk-based development. As Google works on both public and private branches of Android, the two fall out of sync with respect to features and API support. This forces Google to tediously merge the branches for every release. By focusing on the internal branch, Google claims they can streamline releases and make life easier for everyone. Of course. When the new version of the Android is done, Google says it will continue to publish the source code in AOSP as always. Supposedly this will allow developers to focus on supporting their apps without keeping track of pending changes to the platform in AOSP. Licensed OEMs, meanwhile, can just focus on the lively internal branch as they work on devices that can take a year or more to launch. This change to private development does not come out of the blue. Android feels less open today than it did in the early days. For example, Google has been moving Android features from AOSP into closed source packaging for years. This gives Google greater control over the platform while also making it easier to update core components without a full OS update. Currently, most Android development takes place in the internal branch, but a handful of components like Bluetooth and kernel are developed in the open. They'll be moving to internal under the new system. So, yeah. So I guess Bluetooth and the kernel will be developed internally to the new system. This change will undoubtedly make development easier for Google's team, but it could limit how much we know about Android before the versions are official. Sometimes the tidbits that appear in AOSP can point to upcoming devices, feature removals, or changes to app support. We may not get those insights anymore, and consequently, there won't be as many opportunities for devs and users to challenge Google before it rolls out the unpopular change. Even if there are some negative consequences, the average Android phone user probably won't know anything about the structural change. Google reportedly have more details on the shift to private development later this week, and the change could go into effect as soon as next week. So, is anybody surprised by Google blocking stuff off? No, I don't think so.
Oh, it's a huge shock.
I'm surprised they haven't done it already. Wasn't there like a Fuchsia operating system that they were working on to replace Linux kernel or whatever? Whatever happened to that?
Not
Who
sure.
knows? It's a Fuchsia or Fusion or Fission, fuchsia. I think it's fuchsia. I thought it was a color. I mean, what are the options out there? I mean, you're still, I guess, Apple is completely closed and extremely frustrating. So, and I see people say, oh, Apple's better. I'm like, yeah, well, I got to work on it too long to make it useful. So, it doesn't work. Doesn't work for me. Oh, and this could be bad for somebody. So Ubuntu developers discuss abandoning mailing lists for Discourse. So anyone who's followed any projects for any period of time receives mailing, is on a mailing list. So you get emails and you can read through those on the web client of your choice. So this is also from Phoronix. Since Ubuntu developers decided a few months back to switch from IRC to Matrix for real-time communication needs, the newest fundamental shift being discussed by Ubuntu developers is shifting from mailing list discussions to Ubuntu Discourse for mailing lists like written communications. Some teams at Ubuntu and in turn Canonical have already shifted in large part to using Ubuntu Discourse for long-form communication. Now discussion has been initiated if Ubuntu mailing lists en masse should be transitioned to using Ubuntu Discourse. Ubuntu developer Robbie Basic has started the discussion over a possible transition from mailing list to Ubuntu Discourse for this long-form communication. The idea is still being raised, and some ideas will be hashed out over possible workflow changes for Ubuntu Discourse usage. So, do you think the age of the original communication, like email, might be totally out then? Is that what you can see? You can
Like, I think emails are fine, but especially in things like this, Discourse is a lot more convenient and intuitive to use and to follow stuff the mailing list. Like, I've subscribed to some kernel mailing list and like Arch Linux mailing list. It's like I can't make head and tail of it. I can't. But I think having it in like a Discourse topic, like discussing each topic by itself, I think it can promote more collaboration and cooperation. Like email chains are like very hard, at least for me to like follow a topic, like and understand and comprehend what's going on. I think Discourse will be a much better thing in that regard.
So I have to say, I'm kind of like I'm kind of fatigued by the whole going to different websites for getting information. Like, I kind of miss the days of when I just checked my email. You know what I mean? Like, there's Matrix and Discord and Telegram and Signal and SMS messages, and then what else do I got? Oh, I got Teams, and then I have, for work, I have all these things, and it's all just kind of everywhere. But it'd be nice if I just had emails. I almost think that emails might be the way to go. I don't know. Is that crazy?
Yeah, email is good between one to one person, but if it is multiple people or multiple days, and it's like you have to follow everything, maybe it's not that intuitive.
Well,
that's why
Mike Chilson agrees with me, and he just sent me a Discord message, so I know he only kind of agrees with me. Even though he says he agrees with me totally, he just kind of.
No, I think like especially for like development, like these like email threads go on forever. Like if you're in this mailing list, if you're trying to follow a topic, it's like it's too much hard work to try to understand. But I think if you're in a forum, like Discourse, like for your Discourse, say, it's do it on a forum-based platform. I think these issues are much well discussed on a forum rather than email chains.
I got you. Yeah, I think
Discourse
also,
is nothing but a forum platform. It's like
right. It's probably the best
trying to-
form I've used.
Yeah.
I've used a lot. So
So
download
it's
says
not an app. It's nothing. It's like a website. It's like a website
Right.
only. So
Yeah, I know.
I think it's not that different from opening a website or a client to read your email.
Right. Well, I think it's better when you have lots of.
And also, you can get emails. So you can get emails from Discourse. So you can do that also, because you can configure it for your personal page to get whatever email you want. You can directly reply via email.
But can you email a response and have it go into the Discourse automatically?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
really?
yep.
So then
Yeah,
guess
I do that sometimes.
What's the hubbub about?
I
If
don't
that
know.
works. Yeah.
It works. I've done it. You can directly reply on an email.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. So Don Luckland says, email is one of the last completely federated anybody, anywhere communication tools. Discourse is nice, but it centralizes the conversation in one place. Folks don't have local copies and archives. But I guess if you make it email, then you can have copies and archives. I don't know.
You can have RSS feeds. You can have emails. You can have RSS feed for particular tags or topics. You can do a lot of things with Discourse.
Is that
It's
only
like for the user?
are those automatically activated features, or is that something that has to be activated by the
I
the
think
webmaster?
most people who run Discourse activate it. Like, if let's say if for Endeavor Source forums there's an ARM topic, I can set up an RSS feed for it.
Okay.
I can set up automatic emails for it. I get emails if people directly respond to me, but you can set up whatever you want. It's very configurable.
Right. I got you. All right. Well, cool. Actually, I like Discourse. I'm on the framework Discourse, lurking quite a bit. A lot of neat things being discussed there, and of course the OpenSUSE Discourse and others. So since we have a community free pour, I want to get to the housekeeping so I can give as much time to Michael as possible with his what he's got going on. Neat things, of course. So for housekeeping, next week is an application appetizer. I haven't even thought about what to do for this at all. And so I was hoping somebody here might have an idea as maybe an application or maybe a field or a genre of applications to try out, preferably something of the flat pack variety. But
what about Rufus, Venti, all these ISO burning tools for, again,
I love it.
Maybe attract more distro hoppers.
I love it. That's actually really good. So next week, bring your ISO or image burning, whatever it is, applications. So if you Rufus, there's a Fedora Media Writer. There used to be a SUSE one, but it doesn't exist anymore. Anyway,
There's a GNOME disks, yeah.
GNOME disks, yeah. What do we?
And
So
then Venti.
I use Etcher, Nate, or Minstick.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So we'll just
Etcher.
we'll play show and tell next week on Application Appetizer of ISO writing, USB writing, whatever. I'll figure out a clever name for it, or maybe Eris will figure out a clever name. Because
DD alternatives. Nate, these are all DD alternatives.
Yes. So instead of DDing, or DD can be one too. I mean, actually, I use DD quite a bit. Sometimes it's easier to make an image into a thing. So anyway, so next week for the application appetizer, we'll call it disk creation tools /USB.
You can say slash
writers.
slash
Yeah,
intro to distro hopping.
Yeah.
Distro hopping 101.
Distro hopping enabling.
Like any distro hopper, like this software is the main tool for them.
Okay, groovy. There's one that I use I really like. It's a flat pack, and we'll talk about it next week. Fantastic. And then if we run out of discussion about that, I've got more news topics and other things, so we'll go from there. All right, so if you have any suggestions, distribution suggestions or discussion, like if there's any topics out there that you would really like for us to chat about, send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com or tag, hashtag suggestion somewhere like at on Discord. Discord, yeah. You can do a Tux Digital Discourse forum as well. You can also do Telegram or send me an email. That works out great. If you have any application suggestions or themes of applications you'd like us to check out or things that you're really excited about, send them there too, or any ideas for polls. Because, Eris is a treasure trove of all kinds of great ideas, but, he he might need a break. So yep, check. So if you could do that, suggestions at linuxsaloon.com or tag in one of the forums or chat things somewhere. Not IRC, because I don't have an IRC. Maybe I should set up an IRC because everyone's walking away from it. I don't know. That'd be kind of fun. All right, so we'll get to the community free pour. So Michael Vash, you have been working on some pretty nifty things, and I wanted to give you the floor. Feel free if you would like to share your screen on anything.
Sure. Let me pull it up. And I don't know if I quite go with working, but I have been exploring Emacs, which is crazy for me to say in 2025, but that is what I've been doing. There's a couple of reasons for that. Let's try to, whoops, I need to go this way. I have to get it on the screen that makes sense to share.
Yes.
But I've been exploring it mainly I started initially wanting to explore it. I've been wanting to do this off and on for years. And I ended up really wanting to get into it mostly for org mode, because I just think the way org mode works in comparison to a lot of the other note-taking apps is more what I'm looking for. So that has been my kind of motivation to get me in. But as I started looking at it, I'm just going to go to my config, I guess. We'll just take a look at it. I haven't done too much, but ultimately, this is something that, like I say, I've been trying to do off and on for a couple of years, and I finally feel like my programming skills are at the point where I can actually halfway understand the Lisp. And it's just, I've found out, a lot of different resources for it. It's very interesting. The community around Emacs is not as much into it kind of seems like they're not as much in the social media side of things. There are obviously subreddits and things like that about it. I'm sure there's some Discords out there. I know Doom Emacs has one, and I know there are several YouTube channels that really kind of go into it as well. But it just seems like there are a lot less than something like NeoVim, and there's a lot less discussion on Emacs than something like NeoVim. But it's really kind of crazy just how much stuff you can find to be able to do in NeoVim. For example, one of the things that I saw is Spotify. You can actually control Spotify from within NeoVim with this smudge plugin. You'll see this auth source pick first password. This is actually an authentication thing that I have in an encrypted file where I have my Spotify client secret and client ID. So I could have a Spotify application up. I can control it all from within Emacs. And one of the reasons I ended up adding this is because if I want to do streams where I'm doing game dev on the stream, then I can go ahead and just control Spotify from here. But there are, let's see, org download. This is just being able to add a screenshot. And these are where I went and added my own structure templates to add ELIS blocks more easily and Ruby blocks more easily for source blocks. I'm in the process of kind of moving this over to an org document so it's more literate setup, but I've just been kind of taking things and breaking things out as I need them. I'm not like, there's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm still going to have to change, and there are still a few things that I really want to kind of mess with and update here. But ultimately, so far, I think that I've really kind of gotten to the point where I feel like I halfway know what I'm doing. At the least, it's a marathon for sure. But one of the key things that I would say if you were looking to learn this is to get used to the help system. So you can do in Doom, it's I think it's even in normal, it's Control H. Yeah, Control H, Control V, I believe. Nope, Control HV, maybe. Yeah, and so if you do Control HV or Control H, I believe it's O, or Control HF, you can look up variables, functions. I believe O is for like everything. And then Doom Emacs, it's space HV, space HF, space HF. But they will let you really kind of dig in, and you can kind of go in and see. So this org structure template list, if I go into this, it's going to bring up a new buffer here, and it'll actually show me like the original value and what I actually updated it to. So it will show you how to go in and update this. It will give you a lot of information about that. But yeah, this is actually one of the things that really helped me kind of get a bit further into it and start understanding it, because there is a lot of documentation right here and it's kind of at your fingertips. I think the Kickstart for NeoVim actually does some of this too, where it lets you grep the help more easily. So that is something to keep in mind as well. I liked NeoVim, but I just wanted mainly org mode. There is an org mode plugin actually for NeoVim as well, and which is funny to me. But there are some things that you cannot do. But
So
yeah, I have been. Go ahead.
So what I'm looking at right here, this is Emacs.
This is just yes. This is Emacs.
Okay, and so you're using Emacs as your instead of Vim or Nano or whatever.
Yes. So I can go over and I can go to code, Dragon Ruby, and I'm just going to pull up. I'll just pull up. We'll go to Radiant Bricks because that is the main game I am working on. And now the silly, the top part is of course blocking my screen, so I can only see part of it. But ultimately, you can see my terrible Ruby code, and
I wouldn't be able to judge, so it's fine.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm doing this not quite right, because I write procedural code, I don't write object-oriented code, so it's all right. But ultimately, there's still some things I got to work out. Like I can't get the LSP completion quite working right in this file. It works fine in another project, so I'm kind of playing with that and trying to understand it.
What's LSP completion?
So LSP
autocomplete, Nate. Autocomplete.
Okay.
Yeah, so LSP and then completion mode. I have it all owned. It kind of works. I can do arg like outputs, and then I can do in, but it won't pop up in the window like it normally does in the other project. So I don't know. That's something I have to figure out at some point here, but that's just another thing to figure out. I think it's really something more with Ruby and Solograph than it is with Emacs. But
so, Michael, have you used Vim or NeoVim before, and how do you compare the experience? Like, why do you shift to Emacs?
Mainly for org mode, mainly for some of the other things it offers, and also because NeoVim. Well, that's not correct. I was going to say NeoVim is really a terminal experience, but there are actually ways to get it in a GUI.
I have one of that. Yeah. It's called Astra in Vim, so it's like a configuration for NeoVim, makes it look like VS Code and also
no. That's still running in the terminal though. I'm saying there is an actual app that you can download and you can run
I know that. It's called NeoWrite.
Yes, and the point being there though, when you are in a GUI, you can do other things. You can have different size text. You can have icons more. You can do other things like that it's just not always available in a terminal. So that's one of the things. The fact, like I say, org mode is a big thing for me. There is a NeoVim org mode plugin that can do a lot of the stuff, but it can't do all the stuff. And just the ability to kind of interact with other parts of your system that I'm kind of interested in seeing how it works out. It's just something that I've really been looking at it for a long time. And so I just wanted to, I kind of got to the point where I somewhat understood what was going on in NeoVim. So I wanted to really give myself the chance to explore Emacs before I, just went off with NeoVim. So if Emacs doesn't work out, that'll probably be where I go, is back to NeoVim and work on configuration there. But I was using LazyVim. I did not like how often things were changing in LazyVim. The configuration, I thought it was just too quick, because all of a sudden if you update, like, packages could just be totally changed on you. And that was a little frustrating to me. Right now, I'm using Doom Emacs, but I want to eventually get my own configuration kind of set up just so that I don't have to deal with anything like that. I also just, Doom can have issues when updates happen and all that stuff too. So that's the goal. But yeah, it's just more just wanting to explore Emacs before just going all the way to things in any of them.
So I have some questions here for you. So I'm looking at the interface, and I see there's like at the very bottom there's like a white box with some script inside. I can't really tell what that is.
Yeah, this is some sort of font issue in Arch. This actually doesn't happen in Fedora, even just on a base install. I've looked at it a little bit, but it hasn't been something that I've wanted to really dig into to track down. But it's some sort of font issue. Somebody actually managed to reproduce part of this in a distro box install of Arch. So I'm not sure exactly where that issue is coming from, but it's some weird kind of font issue in Arch somewhere. And I've done some digging on it. I just haven't quite found the magic bullet yet. But it's one of those weird things that pops up every now and then. But I have not seen it, and I've been using Bazzite on a laptop to have a immutable distro on that, and got Emacs installed there, and I have not seen any issues like that at all. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
How did you install Emacs on Bazzite?
There is a system extension to install Emacs on Bazzite.
Oh, okay.
You could install the Flatpak, but you're kind of fighting against part of what Emacs wants to do anyway, so I wanted to go the other route.
A system extension. So is that like a package for Bazzite essentially?
It's something like that. I don't understand the difference between that and something like layering it. So you can, if you don't know, you can still go into Bazzite and do like rpm-os tree install and then a package. You can still do that with Emacs, but you're layering it on top of that. I believe the system extension is doing something a bit different, and it's more preferred to that. The tricky part is, since it is a GUI, you can't just use Homebrew. Otherwise, you could brew install Emacs and be done. But
it's a GUI?
Yes, this is a GUI app.
Oh. I thought it was just in the terminal.
No, so like if I go, can I do it here? I can't do it here. But like if I wanted to, if I go to an org file, we'll go to org. I could go to this faster, but whatever. I'll just go to this. But if I wanted to, I could have these headings different sizes depending on what level they were.
Oh.
So you can use different sized fonts, and that is one of the nice things about the GUI side of things. It's also interesting that in NeoVim, like, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody make a video about the GUI app, NeoViter, or whatever we were saying before. I don't know that I've ever seen somebody make a video about that. I mean, maybe there's one out there. I just haven't seen it. But almost everybody uses the GUI side of Emacs, at least when they're going to make a video about it. I very rarely see people say that they prefer the terminal version of Emacs.
So Mike Chilson says, there's a great PDF book out called An Introduction to Programming in Emacs, Lisp, L-I-S-P, if anyone is interested in digging deeper into add-ons and making your own.
I will have to check that out for sure, because I know it's one of those things where I do have to better understand parts of it, and I know I'm going to want to write my own, at least modules for myself. I don't know if I'm going to want to write something specifically for to actually put out like as a package, but I will. One thing I will say that I've been pleasantly surprised about is, at least with the AI side of things, Claude is not terrible at it. I'm sure the code that Claude produces is not great, but it at least helps me get over some of the initial, like, hey, how am I? Because I know at some point I have to go in and start segmenting some of this off, because eventually I want to be able to use Emacs at work as well, and I need a different configuration for that. So I want to be able to segment by like host name. So there are times where I can get Claude to actually produce some usable code, org agenda capture or org capture templates, things like that. but it's been it still will totally make stuff up. It was talking about a package like org auto commit or something like that, talking about automatically committing to Git. I was trying to like find this package and it doesn't exist. And I'm like, yep, that's the AI doing its AI thing of making stuff up. But like I said, pleasantly surprised, I guess, because org or elisp is so, and Emacs in general is so well documented. It can do a decent bit of stuff.
That's really neat. So someone once said, or maybe I read it somewhere, or I heard it in a podcast, or maybe it was a video. I don't know. It's been a long time, but you could use Emacs as like your entire operating system. Like you could just have it boot into Emacs.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've heard of the same thing, Nate.
Okay, so that wasn't just
It's
me.
an operating system. Yeah. People think it's an operating system. Which you can use as a text editor.
Yes,
sure.
that is the joke. Emacs can be your OS, but and also to edit text. That is the joke. There is an Emacs window manager. So
Really?
it's like EXWM or something like that. I think Distro has a video about that.
Yep.
And he used it for a little while, but I think it just got to be too much for him. But yeah, there's all kinds of like, I mean, you can do other things, like, of course, even you can, and vterm, like I can open a terminal. I have to compile it. We'll see if yeah, there we go. So let's window close, and we'll bring this up. But yeah, I mean, you can open a terminal. You can do that in DOVM. You can open terminal mode. So there's all kinds of stuff. You can run shell scripts. You can do whatever. There's but yeah,
that is really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to be able to kind of contain it all. I want to eventually, kind of get my own little layout here for getting set up for game dev, because I need a terminal to actually run like a command to start the game or something like that. But yeah, it's been interesting to kind of just explore this and kind of see what all I can figure out and see what all I can break.
Well, I do hope that when you break something, you tell us how spectacular it was, so we can all live vicariously through you on breaking stuff. Also, something else that I noticed too is as you're scrolling through, the numbers on the left side I find really confusing. Like one, it says 71, and then above that it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, like reverse order. Can you explain that left bar?
That's relative line numbers. Yeah, that's actually something that most Emacs purists would not be using. But since I'm using evil mode for Vim key bindings, that lets me easily kind of jump and delete lines together. So I'm trying to find, here's a good example. So say I wanted to delete this list, right? If you don't have relative line numbers on, you'd go 8 to 13. But now I can say D5J or D4J and mistype it, but that's okay. And I can just do that. So I can actually see, like, if I want to get all the way down to the line below that, I can say D6J and delete the entire thing.
So
but without that, go ahead.
So why does it say 8? Because is it actually the 8th line?
That is the 8th line. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Got it. Now I understand. So it's all right. Clear. Now it's clear to me. Okay. And so that makes it easier then to delete current plus
or jump or copy or anything else. But it's mostly because I'm using evil mode with Doom Emacs, and that just means you have all your Vim key bindings. So
okay. That makes sense. Oh, very neat.
But yeah, that is something I've been exploring and kind of seeing what I can break. Eventually, there might be a video about it on the Vash YouTube channel. We'll see. There eventually may be one on the game dev side of things where I talk a bit more about it and game dev if I can, come up with something that makes sense for that. But
yeah, that's fantastic. That's really neat.
That is. Oh.
So you're the only person I know that uses Emacs. I last used Emacs sometime in the 90s on Amiga OS. That was the last time I used it.
Anarita is her wife passed by and said, "Are you learning terminal?" Great.
Well, very cool. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I hope it goes really well with you and you keep using Emacs, because everybody uses, Vim and NeoVim and whatever. But it'd be neat to see you do something. I don't know, like I don't know. I find it fascinating. I don't have like an immediate need for it, but maybe I would if I actually created something useful.
Yeah, there are, like I say, there's several kind of smaller YouTube channels that really talk about Emacs. If you're interested in learning a bit more about it, one of the ones that I actually feel like I've learned a good bit from is I'm going to struggle to pronounce his name. I think his name is Prostesilis. He goes by Prot in the Emacs community. I think he is Greek, but he does a lot of kind of overview videos where he talks about like modern mini buffer things, and he talks about has a video talking about the help system, and he has a video talking about various different things. And sometimes I don't necessarily watch them heavily, but let's see, did he find it? Nope, that's Discord. But I don't always watch him. Sometimes I just have him on the background and kind of listen. But I have ended up learning a lot kind of through that, just kind of listening to get ideas, because that's the big thing about NeoVim or Emacs or anything like that, is you really have to kind of think about what you can actually do, because eLisp itself is a real language. You can do all the normal programming things you can with it, and the same with Lua and NeoVim as well. So there's a lot more flexibility than you would kind of expect, and so you really kind of have to look for inspiration sometimes, just because there's so much you can actually.
Yeah, that's neat. Seems like only the most elite of hackers use Emacs. So, Michael, it's nice knowing that you are one of the most elite.
I am stumbling around right now, for sure.
It's okay. You put on a good show, and so it's about my perception. It's not about what you think.
Oh, well then I'll just turn on CMatrix and let that run and just, yeah.
Got it. CMatrix is fun, and it should be included by default in all distributions. All right, well, thank you very much for that demonstration. It is about that time for last call, unless you had something else you want to say about it before I spin it off here.
Not that I know of. Go for it.
All right, cool. Golly, I think I messed something up here, but that's all right. I'll fix it on the back end. So is it time for the last call? And so, Michael, you said you have a YouTube channel that you can share?
Sure. I have the Vash YouTube channel for Linux stuff that I haven't posted on in a long time.
That's
and
fine.
Then I have the Game Dev YouTube channel, Game Dev with Michael, that I have not, again, posted on in a while. I think I posted something maybe in December or January. But very different things, very different focuses. But like I say, eventually I expect I will have a Emacs video out on the Fashionator channel. And if it makes sense on the Game Dev side, then I will probably talk about it, the Game Dev setup over there. But
sweet. That's fantastic. All right. Well, I don't know if you have a place you can share that or whatever, but please do so. I know, Colin, you are you're off having new adventures, so probably not a whole lot of time for any of your Linux venturing outside of 1 month, one day a month.
Not at the moment. Looking at making something maybe soon. Just see how time permits.
Okay.
So just cleaning up a few loose ends.
I know how that goes. I totally get it. Sravan, wasn't sure if you had anything you wanted to share with the class about some of your happenings.
Nothing much.
No. I got you. And Dale, I know you've been doing some videos lately, or what have you got going on?
I've been mostly streaming, playing games on Linux and calling it gaming on Linux. Thursday was my first day that I actually simultaneously cast to Twitch and to YouTube.
Ooh. Must be nice having good bandwidth.
So I can now be found on Twitch.
Fun. So if you have those links, feel free to share those with me, and I'll put it in the show notes.
All right, will do, man. I'll get them there to you in just a minute.
And I'll kind of finish this way. So, Jinda, if you have anything you want to share before we close things out?
Oh, no, just doing the same stuff I always do. I've been playing with RetroArch a lot, playing some old video games.
Cool. What any video games particularly been playing?
Actually, I've been playing Zelda.
Like which one?
It was the Super Nintendo. So it would be
A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it seems kind of weird that you can get a 30-year-old video game and it's great, and then you get a 10-year-old video game and it's horrible.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just kind of weird.
Cruz, did you have any parting words, any words of wisdom from the great Cruz? It's all right, you don't have to. It's all good. Maybe you fell asleep. It was a riveting conversation. Scrub Ghost, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to say besides any maybe Bluetooth headphone victories or anything like that. It's okay. You don't have to. Do appreciate you all being here. I have a podcast, Linux Out Loud, if you want to listen to that. I have two co-hosts, Matt and Wendy. We talk about any variety of topics, kind of like this, except, I don't know, it's three of us, kind of the different ventures that we have in Linux and tech. So you can check that out. I also have a website called keepinglate.com. Sometimes I write things. So Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of this conversation in both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, and all of you that watch the show after the fact. I greatly appreciate it. I want to thank everyone that's involved in making Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computers. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Bye.
Bye.